Okay, so in this session we're going to be exploring the wrists. We've got lots of people asking about how to support the wrists. In yoga we tend to dive straight into doing lots of different movements on the hands, and we haven't necessarily warmed up the hands, the wrists and the forearms. So one of the most important things I guess I always like to think about with the wrists is that it's not just this area we're trying to build, because we've got mostly just a whole load of tendons kind of running through here, and the muscle body comes from further up the forearm. So that's the sort of muscle we'll be working, and you'll start to feel it when we do certain things. Obviously, also you've still got the muscles in the palms, into the fingers, but so a lot of stuff that we're working with the wrists will be coming from further up the forearm. So that's what we're going to be doing. So to begin with, just be comfortable. Again, you can sit in a chair, you can kneel, you can be cross-legged, whatever's most comfortable for you. Just go back a little bit better. And so we're going to just literally warm up the fingers to begin with. So just literally stretch and clench the fingers. Really find each time, maybe start slower to see that you're actually engaging it, because then when we get a little faster, we tend to just kind of ping them out and in, but really try and find that stretch and engage. Again, you might already start to feel that in the forearms, in the palms, or in the fingers, so just starting to move with that. Maybe beginning to lengthen the hands away, engaging through to the forearms, through to the shoulders, and obviously everything's connected, so we want to sort of think about how we're working within the whole body. Engaging and engaging, and maybe taking the arms out to the side. Keep engaging, just keep those hands always moving. And then turning round to the back, a little bit of internal rotation of the shoulder joint. And seeing the effect that has as we try and twist those wrists a little further round. And then gently release. Give them a little shake, give them a wriggle. And then soften. So just let the palms have a little rest. Notice how that feels. Notice any sensations kind of coming into that area. Again, if the wrists are particularly tight or sort of feel weak, obviously they won't necessarily be as weak as you probably have in your mind, but just noticing how they're feeling and being gentle with that if this is an area for you that is feeling particularly tender. So just gently letting them soften, closing your eyes, taking a couple of breaths, releasing down through your head, your neck, your shoulders, your torso, your pelvis, your arms and your legs. And then gently release, open your eyes again. So a couple more movements. So we're going to explore a movement that we don't tend to think about so much, which is radial and ulnar deviation, also known as abduction and adduction. Adduction taking towards the medial line and abduction taking away. So again, we'll just work with this movement nice and slowly, exploring how it feels. Again, you can do this if you're standing, it's a little easier, you can see the movement that I'm doing. Again, when you first start, it feels a little strange. I find that adduction is much easier than abduction. Abduction definitely for me is a little stiff, it doesn't want to move so much, so just exploring how that feels, where you can feel it within the torso. Keep the elbows plugged in to begin with, in towards the torso, or again if you've got the arms hanging down. Starting to feel that up through the wrist, up through the forearms. Couple more times, breathing nice and gently. And then again gently release, let them shake off. And then also, obviously, we've got flexion and extension. So we've got the extensors on the back, so we're extending, and then flexion on the underside of the forearm when we flex, extending and flexing. So just moving those wrists. Again, it might be that you move really nice and slow, or maybe a little faster. Again, just working within your limits with what feels comfortable for you today, exploring what works. And then just a couple more breaths. We'll explore a little bit of working up through to the shoulder, so I'm going to move to one side. So now, we're going to just release your right hand down towards the ground. You're going to let your head drop to the right. We're going to stretch that arm out to the side, and we're going to flex and extend. Now, as we take that stretch a little further in through the neck, you feel it a little stronger through the wrist, or I definitely do anyway. So just again noticing where that movement comes from and how far it travels up through the rest of the body. Really let that right shoulder drop down through to the neck, soften the jaw, and just exploring that sensation again in through the wrist, up through the forearms. Noticing what tends to happen is also we might bend the elbow, obviously that's fine. Just see if you can bring a little more tension, positive tension in through the torso, through the arm. And then let's go to the other side. So now, again, reaching down over to the left, letting the head lengthen, and exploring on the other side of the body. As always, we'll find one side works a little easier, or moves a little easier, or is a little stiffer. Again, without any judgment, just checking in with the different sides of the body. Maybe spending a little more time when you notice that stretch wants to stay a little longer. Breathing gently in through the jaw, through the neck, through the shoulders and the front of the chest. And 2 more breaths. Again, just still checking in with the rest of the body as we lean to one side, what's happening with the legs, with the belly, with the spine. Just observing the rest of the body as well, even though we're focusing on the wrists, and gently soften. Give the shoulders a wriggle, give the shingles or fingers a little, a little wriggle, and then gently again close your eyes, just let the palms rest. Take a couple of breaths again, just checking in with the body. Noticing if you find you're feeling it more in one side of the body and in one hand, in one forearm, or again where you're feeling that movement that we've been working on. Take one more breath, and then as you exhale, gently release, opening your eyes, coming down onto your forearms. So I want you to drop down onto your forearms and push the floor away. So again, we're not letting the chest drop down, you're squeezing and engaging through the torso. And I want you to really push the floor away from you. So really spread and press as much of the fingertips down to the ground. And then turn the wrists over and press the back of the fingers down to the ground. For some people this is going to be super easy, for others your thumbs might stay all the way up here. So just again exploring, but trying to reach those thumbnails back down and turning. So exploring this sort of spiral motion, this spiral anatomy that I've been working with Karen Kirkness, who I've been studying with her, and she is sort of exploring this idea of the spiral motion, the opening and grounding spirals of our limbs, and thinking about how the limbs, how they're sort of like the leading movement. So just exploring that all the way down to the fingertips, instead of thinking about where we're leading from the center of the body. Just exploring again how that feels. You can start to feel that as you bring it a little more all the way up into your forearms. Again, starts super simple, feels really easy maybe, and then it starts to get a little more. If you're finding that those fingers don't really want to stay down, you can also use your hand and just maybe apply a little bit of pressure, just trying to make a little more space. To drop the palms, maybe drop the back of the fingers down a little more, a little self-massage, or again, literally just stay with the hand there. And again, working on the other side, just noticing how that feels. And gently moving the palm across, maybe the thumb, or down through the little finger, wherever it might need. Again, just a couple more times, finding that stretch and that engagement, just warming up through the forearms. And 2 more breaths. I can definitely feel my arms are getting tired. And gently releasing that. Let's rest down into child's pose. Bring your arms behind you. Let the chin tuck all the way towards the chest. Rounding gently through the neck and the spine. Rounding the shoulders. And just taking 2 breaths here. Really letting go of the fingers, of the palms. And then exhale, gently release. So now coming onto your knees again. And I want you to just think about pressing firm into the hands. So then you're going to push against the palms, flex the toes, and then I want you to just lean back and lean forwards. Leaning back and leaning forwards. So just taking your time just to explore how that feels for you. Again, it might be that when you come forwards, I tend to sort of drop into my elbows. So again, just maybe stay a little higher. You don't have to go so deep. So when you try and come forwards, notice what happens with the rest of the body. Notice if the fingers start to creep up. Really try and push the floor away, and at the same time draw up through the torso, up through the arms. A couple more times. And then we're going to stay in that same position in the sort of neutral line. And I want to press into the fingertips and lift the wrists off and drop them down. Lift the wrists off and drop them down. Moving gently. Again, you might find that there's no lift. You might find there's a little bit of lift. You might find I've definitely got one side that wants to move a little more. So again, just finding that space. Lifting and dropping down. Lifting and dropping down. And then one more time, drop down and we'll lift the fingers. Again, there might be a little movement, there might be tons of movement, there might be no movement, but that action of trying to make that movement happen will be helping to engage those muscles. Find that sort of mind-body connection, because sometimes we feel very disconnected from the rest of the body and how to make those movements happen. Moving with the breath, checking in. As we focus a little more, we tend to just stop breathing completely. And gently release. Again, come back onto the knees or into a comfortable sitting position. Just release the fingers, give them a wriggle, give them a shake. And gently soften. Again, close your eyes, palms facing up. Breathe in gently. And gently, we're going to work with one last little bit, which is just going from plank to dropping your knees. So pressing into your palms, into your fingers, flex your toes. And to begin with, I just want you to push the floor away and find that strength. So what you want to be thinking about is an internal rotation of the forearm and an external rotation of the upper arm. Again, this is a subtle movement. We're not really rotating completely all the way out and really completely turning one in, but it's that finding that positive tension between this sort of push and pull, this constraint and yeah, push and pull is the best way I can think to currently explain. So finding that external rotation of the upper arms, internal rotation of the forearms. Engaging here, pressing into and flexing the toes, and just lift the knees or hover the knees round the spine so you're not sort of dropping all the way down. Have a slight run in the spine, push the floor away and drop down. We're just repeating this a couple of times. That might be your limit, just staying with that and just noticing how that feels. What we tend to do is just not use the rest of the body when we're engaging through the forearms and the wrists, and we just put all of the weight down into the wrists. So again, it might be comfortable to sort of open the hands a little more and span them out to the side, and again take them a little wider. So you're not pushing everything forwards or putting the weight all the way straight down into the wrists. And just exploring how that feels. Pushing and lifting. Push and lift. Again, so just a couple more times exploring that. Again, check in with where the movement of the hands feels comfortable for you, and then you can stay with that. Or if you want to work with plank, then push the heels away, squeeze through the center of the body, engage and look forwards. Push down against the hands. One more breath. And then exhale, drop down onto the knees, push the hips back and drop the elbows down towards the floor. Exhale, lift the wrists up. I lift the elbows up. Lift the wrists, drop the wrists. Stay there, or lift the knees. Exhale, drop the knees, push. Elbows down, look forwards. Elbows up, wrists up, drop down. So if you come really far back and you're finding like you're having to stretch forwards, then come a little further again. I was a little bit far away then. So push against the floor, lift and engage through the torso, squeeze through the belly. Exhale, knees down, elbows down, elbows up, wrists up, wrists down. One more time, lengthen, engage through the torso, looking forwards, push those heels away, remember the rest of the body, the feet, the toes. Exhale, down, elbows down, look forwards, elbows up, wrists up, and release. Again, gently soften, have a little wriggle, have a little shake off, and then soften here, clasping the fingers. Just have a little wriggle to, again, really try and shake off any holding. And then gently release, closing your eyes, broadening across your chest, softening here. So that was just a little short session exploring the movements of the wrist, they're working all the way up into the forearms and down to the hands, and just noticing how that feels. And thinking about how we can support the smaller parts of the body that we don't always pay attention to. How we can support that area by working with mobility, mobilizing the joints, engaging and strengthening the joints on a much sort of more gentle, building up that process nice and slowly instead of going straight into, I'm going to just stay in plank for like 10 hours. So, keeping your focus. And now slowing the breath down. And checking in with how the body's feeling. And 3 more breaths, letting the pelvis release, the shoulders, the top of the head, down to the fingers, down to the toes. And gently release. So there we go, that's having a little bit of exploration of the forearms, the wrists and the hands. I definitely try and do this if I'm going to be working with working with the wrists a little bit more. I sort of definitely used to keep just going straight into loads of hand and wrist work without warming up and without really engaging and finding out what's going on with my forearms. So I hope that helps some of you. Thank you.